So we're just about freezing today. Let's see if it's going to want to start up for us. And I got some go-go juice there, so we'll use it if we have to. Not bad. Beauty. I guess that it's time for some muffler repair, huh? We'll get to that. Yeah, I gotta fix that exhaust. Here was the project today. I just went through and vacuumed out the car. When they plow the fields, we get mice that come to the property because they got nowhere else to go. So somebody decided to live in the car. It's getting a little grungy. They've been since evicted, so we're good. So there's a flashback a couple of years. Got a CB radio and a magnetic antenna. So I gotta find a parking spot for that CB. I mean, maybe it would fit in the glove box. Might be a little bit tight, but then I lose the storage space. I wouldn't mind hiding it up under the radio space there, because it's not really a spot that would be in the way. You could access it while driving if you had to change channels or adjust accordingly, but I think that might be our winning spot. I gotta figure out what kind of room I might have to put the hanger up there, because there is a little hanger that comes with it. So we'll have to see what I can make happen, if I can do something to build up a little bit of a mount, because that's the radio. I don't know if I want to hang it off of that. We'll find something. I guess it could go under the passenger dashboard side too, because I could still reach that when I'm in the car without too much reaching and too much trouble. And that's the bottom of the glove box. That's not a bad spot, actually. I don't want to drill any unnecessary holes either, so well, let's get playing around and see what we can make happen. Well, I messed around for a while trying to figure out where I could mount this radio and have it accessible and in a spot that's not going to be kind of problematic. So when you plug the antenna in the back, you end up making this whole thing longer. It's already pretty big to begin with, so it's a lot of depth to hide somewhere. The glove box was out of the question, did not work at all. It was not deep enough. I'd have to do some cutting, and I didn't really want to do that. I don't want to modify anything where I can't revert back. I don't even want to make any holes with screws in the car if I don't absolutely have to. So the one thing that I found, I thought, well, there's existing glove box screws underneath. The bracket would work there. Problem is, when you open the glove box, the way that the glove box hinge comes down, it would have hit the face of the radio. So that was not really an option. No. Then I started thinking about putting the mount where I'm at now. The only problem is there's nothing back there to mount anything to. It's just kind of floating in the middle of nowhere. And I did not want to make any holes in the actual plastic dash. So this time I mixed up some epoxy and I made a little piece of steel, just kind of bent it up and drilled some holes where I needed it to be, and mounted my bracket to that. And I've got it using some epoxy right now. I'm gluing it to the dash from the underside. So you're not actually going to see anything other than the new bracket, and that piece of steel could always be bent and folded up under the dash out of the way. You'd never know it's there. So hopefully that's going to hold and work for the radio. That then lets it be tucked kind of up inside, right at the bottom edge of the dash. It's out of the way of the passenger getting in and out. And I don't necessarily need to leave the mic connected all the time, but if I do, it's further on it's toward the console anyways, so the mic could easily sit in the console or in the cup holder or change holder, whatever you want to call it. But for now, I think that's good. I'm going to let that cure. I got to give it probably more than half an hour because it's so cold outside now, but I might run the heat for a little bit longer in the car just to keep it toasty. But outside of that, we're going to do some cable routing. That's going to be one of the next deals here that has to happen in the car. Somehow get that wire all the way up here from the back. I'm sure I can find a creative path to do that once I start looking around. And yeah, that's about that. So I'll update shortly. All right, we're back in the Pontiac for one last round. I just took the clamps off, which were a little bit glued to the car, but that's okay. They came off without too much fuss. So if you look through here, you'll see my new piece of sheet metal. It's not really creative, but it does give me a brand new mount for the CB bracket without making any new holes in the dash. And I feel like if I decide that this isn't going to work for me, I can remove the machine screws holding the bracket on. I can fold the steel up into the dash and it'll disappear. I'll forget it's ever there, and you'll never know that there was anything in that spot before. So even with the ashtray installed, there's no interference. That's definitely a plus. Now to get the mounting hardware out and actually mount this CB. I think it's gonna go, if I'm not mistaken, I can go all the way back with it. So then it'll be the pretty flush looking finish, in fact. I gotta do some wire hiding, and then we're laughing. Once that's all attended to, then I gotta decide if I'm going to rig up that mount so it can hang the mic. If, I don't know if that's something I really wanna do in the car. I definitely don't wanna make holes. That's my main number one to stay away from. I might be able to put it over here near the dash because there's some screws that are available there. I'll look around and see what I can come up with. Worst case, I can just tuck it up underneath and leave it. So let me get my shallow screwdriver set out and see if I can't mount this guy under the dash, and then we can take it for a test. for the time being, I've kind of makeshift jumped this feed into the same side that the radio fuse is. I've put some fuse taps on order. As soon as I get here, I'll swap that out and I'll have the appropriate fuse tap there. I have to zip tie and tuck everything up under the dash. However, let's turn this ignition on. So that's the key for accessory, so I get radio, should I want it. Turn volume on. There is the CB. Looks like it's working. I can't say that there's anybody around that I can test with, but that certainly seems mounted pretty solid now. Doesn't interfere with the glove box. Not that I use the ashtray, but that's not interfering either. It's tucked up out of the way of the passenger side foot, so I guess you shouldn't have any trouble kicking it. And it doesn't look that terribly out of place, but if ever I decided to remove it, I can just take that bracket right off of that piece of steel. I could leave the steel there, or I could fold the steel up under the dash, and it's gone. So I think we're all right. It feels solid too. So just playing around there, and there is a screw in the dash. I tried that with the hanger for the mic there. It does work. I think what will happen though, if I wiggle it enough, the screw will back out, then the mount will just be sloppy and loose and kind of floating there. Plus it gets in the way with the ignition. So I'm not like the most fond of that location for the mic. There's got to be something a little better suited for that. I don't want it in front of the HVAC controls. I definitely want it out of the way, like in this vicinity is okay. I'd love to have a solid mount there, but maybe what I need to do is make one of these that has a metal flap that I can put in behind and then screw it in that way so it stays tight, because I suspect that that's just going to become a rattling mess. And once it backs out, if I don't have a screwdriver in the car, then it's going to be a bit inconvenient to fix it. But I don't want to make any holes or damage to the car outside of what's already here, like with the factory screw holes and original stuff. I'd like to try to keep that intact as much as possible. I mean, would it work? Would it work here? Kind of, sort of. Blocks the vent a little bit. Access to the blower speed, I guess. Maybe beside the dash, between this trim panel here and out. I mean, this is really the end all, is just leave it right there. That'll work just fine. Don't need the hanger for it. You can pick it up and use it whenever you want. And it's a little too solid to mount to this ashtray. This ashtray is kind of loose. So even if I had it tagged like there, when you go to put that on, I think it's just going to start pulling down. It's going to start pulling that open. I'm too picky, that's the problem. But I'll figure something out. Maybe on the console. Now that wouldn't be bad if I put it on the console there. As long as I can keep the cord out of the way if I've got a coffee or something. Now that, I could get behind that. I'm going to try that actually. That's the winner to me. Cool. That feels like a winning spot. Easy to get from the driver's side or from the passenger side. Not in the way of any controls. I can reach the e-brake. I like it. Keeps everything nice and clean, and it's still in an existing screw hole that was always there that I can just not worry about. Awesome. Now to clean up my garbage, get all this stuff out of here, and I think for now I'll take the antenna off the roof and just leave it in the car so it's not letting any water leak through or nothing, any more water leak through, I should say, and then I'll go back to babysitting.